Panyos, we're on location here. We've got the double holder for obviously the GoPro Hero 10 and the DJI Action 2. I'm going to show some side-by-side comparison of the video. Now, there's so many different settings here that we can compare. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing the most practical that I would use, right? So we're going to be doing the 5K.3 versus the 4K, both on 60 frames a second. Then we'll also do the 4K 120 versus whatever the 120 variant is on the GoPro. We'll show you the differences in the field of view. So, you know, the ultra wide versus standard or linear for whichever device you're on. And then we're going to be showing you here the different steadiness as far as hyper smooth versus hyper smooth turned on, and horizon steady versus horizon steady turned off. Now, I'm not going to be doing rock steady. If you want to look at what rock steady looks like, check out the video where I go in depth on the actual camera review itself. Nonetheless, this comparison here, we're going to be doing all or nothing, which I think is reasonable. Now, as far as accessories goes, there's very few accessories that are available for the Action 2. You really can't use Action 1 accessories with Action 2 because it's a completely different model. So, for instance, the enclosure to have both the dual cam and the unit itself enclosed to be able to go swimming or snorkeling or whatever, not available yet. Because of the supply shortages, I couldn't order it. In order to get the power bank, if you didn't want to get the dual cam, that's out on back order, and then there's a couple of other items. As far as the GoPro, everything's cross compatible, even the max lens mod from the 9 to the 10. However, at the time of this video, the max lens mod update is not available. That's why I don't have it on the lens. But any of the enclosures, any of the media mods, any of the other devices like the light or the extra batteries, they're all cross compatible with the 9. Now, the GoPro is a much more rugged, larger device. Granted, you're not going to be able to put it in as many of obscure places as you would the Action 2. The Action 2 is about half the size and half the weight. It still is capable of doing all of the different camera settings and modes. However, you're restricted with that 32 gigabytes of storage for just the unit. This does have the same IPS rating as the GoPro. However, once you put the Action 2 onto the module, it's not. So you'll have to get an enclosure. So do not put this in water at all. I don't even know if it's dust resistant because you've got all these open stuff. All right, lastly here, I think we just need to start recording and showing you guys the side-by-side. So I will make sure down below, I'll have all the settings showing you on each camera, which one's doing which. We'll be walking around, talking, and running around here as well. Okay, right off the get-go, guys, you already know something different. On the GoPro, we've got 5K.3 at 60 frames a second. Unfortunately, it's wide. On the Action 2, we've got 4K 60 with the ultra view, so you can see that there's that punch in on the GoPro. Both of them do not have any stabilization on, so you can see how wobbly it is. I'm holding it here with the two-way, but I'm noticing, at least on the playback from the GoPro, that I'm actually getting a pretty stable shot as I walk around. On the Action 2, it's atrocious. Let's go ahead and bring the GoPro back to equal parity with both the settings. Okay, now we're at parity here, meaning 4K 120 on both of them. Both of them have limitations of wide, and there's no steadying. In other words, there's no rock steady on the Action 2, and there's no hyper smooth. It's all off. It is available, but I'm doing it for the sake of this video here. Now, one thing to note here on the Action 2 as a bug flies into my face, the Action 2 does not have the playback of the second screen. I guess it gets really hot, and so all I can see is just a button that says 4K 120. But both of them look pretty good. You'll be the one to decide which one's punched in more. Okay, continuing to walk around here. Both are at parity now. We've got the GoPro at 4K 60 Super View. We've got ultra wide 4K 60 on the Action Cam. Now, there is a difference here in viewing angle because of, well, the way that the lenses are. We've got the lens higher on the Action Cam as opposed to the GoPro. But walking around here, you can kind of see every single wobble and jaw. I'm not going to run because I'm going to save your guys' soul from the trouble of that. I feel like I'm getting a wider field of view from the Action 2 as opposed to the GoPro. Interesting. Okay, we're still on 4K 60. However, on the action, I've turned on rock steady. That's the maximum I can do as far as the stabilization. On the GoPro, I can actually do Hyper Smooth 4.0 at boost, which is, in my opinion, the best. So that's why you're seeing it punch in a little bit more on the GoPro Hero 10, and it's very, very stable. Whereas on the Action 2, it's not so much, but you have a much wider field of view. Now, some people like the wider field of view. I don't. I like to punch in because look how much that's bending. It is really warped. So let's go ahead now and put it on the highest stabilization for both of the cameras at 1080p because we are limited with the 4K on the Action 2. Okay, now we're starting 1080p 60 frames a second, and I'm doing the most stabilization that I can. So on the GoPro, that means we've got Hypersmooth 4.0 on boost, and we've got super wide shot. You can see how punched out it is. Punching in on the Action 2, we've got it on horizon steady. It only has standard. You can't even go wide. And so it turns that off even on 1080p 60 frames a second. So let's go ahead now and start my run, show you what it looks like holding this out while running, and you tell me which one you think is more stable. Swinging it around here. I am not caring at all how this device is being held. It is very wobbly. It is very, very unstable. But you guys will be the ones to tell, which one looks better. Now you're probably thinking the Action 2 is not as good because it punches in too much at the 1080p, and you can hardly use horizon steady if you want 1080p 60 frames a second. However, let me show you this. It's got the horizon lock that the GoPro Hero 10 has when you have the max lens mod. So with the Action Cam, the Action 2, you can see that it kept me in view, whereas on the GoPro it went upside down. So that's the beauty of it. It's punching in so much because it's got such a wide field of view that it's able to stabilize and keep you upside down and looking just fine in shot. And if you're doing action that much, you can totally tell that's unfortunate for the GoPro. Okay, now we're shooting at about parity, meaning I've got the exact same setting for both of them. I'm on the highest stabilization for the Action 2, and I'm parodying that on the GoPro Hero 10. As you can see down below on the Action 2, we've got horizon steady, we've got 60 frames a second, 1080p at standard. On the GoPro Hero 10, we've put it on linear horizon leveling. You can see it significantly punched in, and we've got 1080p 60 frames a second, Hypersmooth 4.0 boost. So you can see, like I said, it's about parity, the difference being that the lenses aren't necessarily as close as they are. But there's some interesting coloring going on with both of the devices here. I've got them on very flat neutral profiles. You can see though that something's going on with the Action Cam and making me so much more orange with all this direct light on my face, whereas the GoPro is having the lights kind of blow out. Very, very interesting. Again, shooting at parity, we've got the highest stabilization on both of them with the horizon locks on both of them. Horizon lock on the GoPro, horizon steady on the Action 2. Punched in, both of them punched in pretty far. This is linear, this is standard, and we're both at 1080p 60 frames a second. Got my skateboard here, let's go ahead and ride. That is so bumpy on my feet. Okay, now I've moved it to ultra wide and super view on boost and on rock steady. It's punching in too much, you're not getting a lot of the shot, but it still looks pretty good and is really, really stable. Both of them do a good job with the horizon level. Let's go ahead and do maximum stabilization without that horizon boost. See what that looks like on the skateboard. Nextly here, we're going to go ahead and test out the Hyperlapse. That's going to be the last feature. I'm not going to go and break down both the apps and show you what they look like. They're very, very similar, but you can control both of them from your phone and you can do a myriad of different adjustments. One thing very interesting is that time-lapse is available on the Action 2, but Hyperlapse isn't. It's kind of interesting. Time warp is what GoPro does for both of them. In order to get to Hyperlapse, you have to actually go into the app and then swipe through the camera through the different profiles, and you've got right next to time-lapse, Hyperlapse. With that said, let's go and throw it on my chest, and we're going to be using the chesty, not the necklace mount, because I do not trust that. And let's go for a ride. Alright, Pugnios, well, that about does it here. I compared the most common different uses for the Action Cam Action 2 by DJI compared to the GoPro Hero 10. There's some limitations on both of them. Both of them get very hot. Both of them battery life is issues, especially if you have the Action 2 without the additional accessory of either the dual cam or the power bank. The Action 2 has memory storage issues. Because of how small it is, there's no expandable storage. You have to have the second adapter in order to expand the storage, and even then it's got issues because if you fill this up, it doesn't automatically offload it to the card, and I don't even think there's a way that you can. With the GoPro, there's no onboard storage. You just put the card in the thing and it's good. Hit that like button, guys. Subscribe if you want to see more. Let me know what you think down below in the comments, whether this is better than the GoPro or not. If you have interest in any of the accessories for these products, check them out down below in the links in the description. This is not a sponsored video. None of these products were given me for free, but if you click the links, it does help out the channel as they are my affiliate links. Subscribe, hit that like button on this video, and we'll catch you on the next one.